The aroma of roast turkey and simmering cranberry sauce filled my mother's house, but all I could smell was the familiar stench of judgment. Another Thompson family Thanksgiving, another round of subtle and not-so-subtle digs at my life choices. "Look who finally made it," my sister Rebecca announced as I hung my coat. "Must be hard getting away from your little, what do you call it? Boutique." "It's called the Corner Shop," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. The name had been deliberately chosen for its modesty, a perfect cover for what lay beneath. The living room was a showcase of what my family considered success. Mom's executive awards from Reynolds Corporation lined the walls. Dad's golf trophies gleamed in their cabinet. Rebecca's law degree and partner's certificate held pride of place above the fireplace. And then there was me, Jessica Thompson, owner of what they thought was just a small vintage clothing store in downtown Portland. "Jessica's here?" Mom called from the kitchen. "I thought you'd be too busy with your Black Friday sale. Isn't that a big day for shops like yours?" The way she said "shops like yours" made it sound like I was running a back-alley operation instead of what was actually the flagship store of my retail empire. "I managed to get away," I said, following her voice to the kitchen. "The staff can handle things." Mom stood at the counter, perfectly coiffed even while cooking, her CEO persona never slipping. "Staff? You mean that college kid you hired?" If she only knew that staff meant my team of 500 corporate employees and over 10,000 retail workers across the country. But that was the beauty of my plan. None of them knew. "Something like that," I murmured, reaching for a wine glass. "Well," she sighed, "at least you're doing something. Even if it's not quite what we expected from a Stanford MBA. Yes, my Stanford MBA. The one they'd all assumed would lead me straight to corporate success like Mom, or professional prestige like Rebecca. Instead, I'd used it to build something they couldn't even comprehend. "Speaking of expectations," Rebecca chimed in, swirling her wine, "did you hear about Mom's big news? Reynolds is expanding again. They're acquiring smaller retail chains left and right." I took a long sip of wine to hide my smile. Reynolds Corporation, where Mom had been CEO for the past decade. The company that was about to get the surprise of its corporate life. "That's wonderful, Mom," I said. "Any specific acquisitions in mind?" "Oh, you wouldn't know them, dear," Mom dismissed with a wave. "Major retail chains, not little boutiques. Though I suppose that's more your speed these days." The doorbell rang, announcing more arrivals. Soon the house was full of relatives, each carrying their own weight in accomplishments and condescension. "Still running that tiny store?" Uncle James asked during appetizers. "You know, I have some contacts in real estate if you're ready for a real job." "Thanks, but I'm happy where I am." "Happy?" Aunt Sarah scoffed. "Sweetheart, you're wasting your potential. Your mother runs Reynolds Corporation, for heaven's sake. And you're playing shop owner." "Playing shop owner." If they only knew that while they were busy looking down their noses at my tiny store, I'd built Cornerstone Retail Group into one of the largest private retail corporations in the country. The corner shop was just the visible tip of a very large, very profitable iceberg. "Leave her alone," Mom said, but her tone made it clear she agreed with them. Not everyone is cut out for corporate success. I checked my watch discreetly. By now, the papers would have been delivered to Reynolds board members. Mom's phone should be ringing any minute. Right on cue, her cell phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, and excused herself to take the call in her study. "Probably another acquisition," Rebecca said proudly. "Mom's been buying up companies left and right." I smiled into my wine glass. "Actually, I think this call might be a little different." The words had barely left my mouth when Mom's voice exploded from the study. "What do you mean, hostile takeover?" The room fell silent. Even the football game on TV seemed to quiet down. "Should someone check on her?" Aunt Sarah asked nervously. "Give her a minute," I said calmly, taking another sip of wine. "I'm sure she'll want to share the news with everyone." The study door flew open. Mom stood there, face flushed, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "This has to be a mistake," she was saying into it. "Cornerstone Retail Group? I've never even heard of them." Now it was my turn to smile. "Actually, Mom, you have. You just knew them by a different name." All eyes turned to me as I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, identical to the one that had just been delivered to Reynolds board members. "You see," I continued, laying out the documents on the dinner table, Cornerstone Retail Group started with one small vintage clothing store. A tiny boutique that everyone dismissed as insignificant. Mom's face went from red to white as she approached the table, staring at the papers with disbelief. "No," she whispered. "This isn't possible." "The corner shop was just the beginning," I explained, my voice carrying in the stunned silence. "While everyone laughed at my little store, I was building something bigger. Something that just acquired controlling interest in Reynolds Corporation." The turkey grew cold on the dining room table as my family struggled to process what was happening. Mom sank into her chair, still clutching her phone, while Rebecca frantically Googled Cornerstone Retail Group on her tablet. "Oh my God," Rebecca whispered, her face pale. "They're huge. Market cap of, that can't be right. 28 billion as of last quarter," I confirmed. "Though with the Reynolds acquisition, we should break 30 billion by year's end." But you run a vintage clothing store," Uncle James sputtered. "No," I corrected him. "I own a vintage clothing store. I run one of the largest retail conglomerates in the country. There's a difference." Mom finally found her voice. "This is some kind of joke. You can't possibly." I pulled out my corporate ID card and CEO badge, sliding them across the table. Jessica Thompson, CEO and majority shareholder of Cornerstone Retail Group. "The tiny store you've all been mocking? It's just where I go to remember how this all started. All this time," Aunt Sarah breathed. "All those holiday dinners where you made fun of my little shop? Where you told me I was wasting my potential. Yes, I remember each one." I kept my voice level, professional. "Every time you laughed at my playing shop owner, I was closing another acquisition. Building something bigger than Reynolds could ever dream of being." Rebecca was still scrolling through her tablet. "The Riverside Mall acquisition last year. The Turner department store chain. The Atlantic Coast buyout. That was all you?" "All me," I confirmed. "Well, me and my team of executives, all of whom, by the way, I hired because of their talent, not their family connections." That barb hit home. Everyone knew Rebecca had gotten her law firm partnership through Dad's golf club connections. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom asked, her voice small. "Would you have believed me?" I countered. "Besides, watching you all underestimate me while I built something extraordinary, it was enlightening. Showed me exactly who you all really are." The doorbell rang, making everyone jump. Through the front window we could see several news vans pulling up. "That would be the press," I said, checking my watch. "The acquisition goes public in about 5 minutes. Mom, you might want to fix your makeup before the cameras start rolling." "The press," she whispered. But what do I say?" "Don't worry," I assured her, pulling out a press release. "Our PR team has prepared a statement. Something about exciting synergies and mutual growth opportunities. The usual corporate speak." Dad, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "All those times you said you were too busy for family events because of inventory." "Board meetings," I corrected. "Merger negotiations. International expansion planning. Though yes, sometimes I was actually doing inventory at the corner shop. It keeps me grounded, reminds me where I started." The first camera crews were setting up on the front lawn. Through the window I could see reporters checking their microphones. "I have to say," I continued, gathering my documents, "this isn't quite how I planned to spend Thanksgiving. I was going to wait until Christmas to announce the takeover, but when I heard about Mom's latest expansion plans..." I shrugged. "Sometimes opportunity knocks early." "What happens now?" Mom asked, her CEO mask cracking further. Now you have 2 choices. You can fight the takeover, though our legal team is quite confident about our position, or you can accept a very generous transition package. Including, of course, a seat on our board." "A seat on your board?" she repeated incredulously. "You're offering me a seat on your board?" "Well, we like to keep successful executives close," I said, echoing the exact words she'd used when acquiring her last competitor. "Though of course you'll answer to me now." The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Rebecca cleared her throat. "And what about the rest of us? What about you?" I raised an eyebrow. "Did you mock my small business?" "Yes." "Did you dismiss my choices?" "Absolutely." "But did you actively try to prevent my success like some others in this room?" I looked pointedly at Mom, who had the grace to look ashamed. 3 years ago she tried to block one of my early acquisitions, calling it amateur hour, and using her connections to interfere. Your law firm does good work, I continued. We might even throw some business your way, though you'll have to bid for it like everyone else. No more family favors. The first reporters were knocking on the door now. Mom stood up, smoothing her outfit automatically, years of corporate training kicking in. Jessica, she said quietly, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, I advised. Just read the press release. We can discuss the details of your transition package tomorrow. 9 a.m. My office. Your office? She asked faintly. Yes, the corner shop has quite an extensive basement. My corporate headquarters takes up most of the block behind it. You've probably walked past it dozens of times without realizing. The knocking grew more insistent. Uncle James looked like he might faint. Aunt Sarah couldn't stop staring at her phone, probably watching our stock price climb as the news started to leak. One more thing, I said, heading for the back door. Mom, you might want to update that family photo wall. Your newest board member should probably have a picture up there. You're leaving? Rebecca asked. But what about Thanksgiving dinner? I smiled, but it wasn't entirely kind. I have a company-wide Thanksgiving celebration at the corner shop. All our employees, from corporate executives to shop clerks, eat together. No hierarchy, no judgment, just gratitude for everyone's contribution. That sounds... She paused. That sounds wonderful, actually. It is, I agreed. Because unlike this family, my company values people for their work, not their titles or connections. As I slipped out the back door, I could hear Mom beginning her press statement. Her voice was steady. I had to give her credit for that as she announced the exciting partnership between Reynolds and Cornerstone. My phone buzzed with a text from my CFO. Stock's up 12% already. Congratulations, boss. I smiled, sending back a quick, thanks. Save me some turkey. Walking to my car, a modest hybrid, not the luxury vehicles my family preferred, I heard Uncle James exclaim, but it's just a tiny shop. How did she? How indeed. While they were busy judging the size of my store, they never bothered to look behind it, never thought to check what else I was building. They saw what they wanted to see, a failed corporate executive playing at retail, and missed the empire rising in their midst. My phone buzzed again. A message from Mom. We need to talk. Tomorrow 9 a.m., I replied. Don't be late. I run a tight ship. Adding, and Mom? Bring Dad. The board has 2 openings and he actually visited my shop once without making fun of it. Might count for something. Starting my car, I caught a last glimpse of the media circus in my rearview mirror. The familiar faces of my family were barely visible through the press crowd, all of them probably still trying to process how the daughter they'd dismissed had just become their boss. But I wasn't thinking about them anymore. My real family was waiting at the corner shop. 300 employees gathered for our annual Thanksgiving celebration. People who'd believed in my vision, who'd helped build something extraordinary without once asking about my pedigree or connections. Sometimes success doesn't look like corner offices and executive titles. Sometimes it looks like a small vintage clothing store with a $28 billion secret. And sometimes the best revenge isn't taking over your mother's company, though that certainly felt good. Sometimes it's showing your entire family that while they were busy looking down at your tiny shop, you were building an empire right under their noses. As I drove away, I couldn't help but smile. Next year's Thanksgiving should be interesting. Very interesting indeed.